Hi everybody, I'm here reporting on last night's game in Portugal where Scotland once again lost 2-1 in the dying minutes. I don't know what to say about this game. You just repeat yourself every time you look at this Scottish team. Absolutely pathetic. I noticed the newspaper, some of the pundits were trying to paint it as a heroic defeat. Oh, we almost got the deserved draw. We didn't deserve a draw. Don't give us that. And trying to paint Steve Clarke as a competent manager who knows what he's doing and is keeping calm. And after all, look where he's got us after however many years he's been the boss. Absolute nonsense. A heroic defeat in the dying minutes. I mean, we spent most of that game in our own half. We could hardly get into their half of the park. Well, I tell a lie. There was a spell, I think it was from 60 minutes to about 70 minutes, where we actually were in their half, passing the ball to each other, getting into the final third, almost threatening them, not quite, but almost. But at least we were having a bout of passing in their half. The rest of the game, it was all played in our half. It was just one wave of attack after another, with the Portuguese dominating the ball, obviously, and us unable to even string 3 or 4 passes together in our own half. Coming out of defence, absolutely pathetic, embarrassing. One of the papers said this morning that wasn't as embarrassing as the 3 games in the Euros, but actually it was just the same. We couldn't even threaten them, couldn't get out of our own half. Had to thank the goalkeeper for keeping the score to 2-1 and a late goal. Okay, the goalkeeper threw the ball in the net practically for their equaliser. That was pathetic, and he goes down in instalments sometimes, but he was our best man. He did maybe 4 or 5 really good saves, which would have seen a real thrashing if it hadn't been for him. So I'll exempt him from the criticism. Maybe McTominay, that's about it. It was the same old. Fat Tony being ripped apart on the left by Leao, who just ran at him, ran by him, passed it into the middle, created a couple of chances, missed a couple himself. So that you don't want a guy like that up against Fat Tony, as Celtic will find out should they have to play him in a European game. So that was bad. Hanley was actually pretty anonymous. He didn't make any great mistakes, but that was because everybody was back in defence anyhow, so he didn't have to do anything like tackle somebody. And in fact, Hanley and McKenna, he's not much better. They just combined nicely for the winning goal, where they just let both strikers run away from them and Ronaldo to just tap it into the empty net. Again, the goalkeeper wasn't too clever there. He seemed to let it go across the face of the goal as well. He's sort of wrong-footed, so the 2 central defenders and the goalkeeper weren't clever at the winner. Go back a step as well. The guy who crossed it in, Fat Tony Ralston, he's there to block the ball, presumably, but if you watch it from a certain angle, he actually pulls his body back the way to get out of the way of the ball, so he lets the ball go right across his chest and into the box. Unbelievable that you think you can do that in an international game. So it's always the same culprits, the same inept performance from the so-called creative players. Oh, and here's the one innovation our wonderful manager made. He had McGinn practically playing out in the left wing the whole game. That's not his position. Practically a left midfielder, left winger. Absolutely terrible. Captain Heroic, Robertson, was as poor as ever with his crossing. And when you get close-ups of his face, he's got this mad-looking, wide-eyed stare as if he's on drugs or something. He is just pathetic as a captain. And as a left-back, actually, I would even give Greg Taylor a go at left-back. I think he might even produce something that Robertson hasn't done for I don't know how many years. So anyhow, only the goalkeeper I would exempt from this performance, and yeah, even he caused the first goal really. Although, having said that, when the ball was pulled back to, what was his name, Bruno Fernandes, he kind of mishit it. There was nobody within about 5 yards of him, nobody closing him down, nobody trying to block the shot. So although the goalkeeper kind of practically slapped it into his own net, the other defenders were just as bad. So now, another poor performance. 1 win in 14, what a record. And that 1 win was Gibraltar. I mean, Gibraltar away, a team that we could have rounded up a squad of tourists that day, and they could probably have beaten Gibraltar in that friendly. So 1 win in 14. The papers are now saying it's the worst run in I don't know how many years. I think if they lose the next 4 games in the Euros, in the qualifiers, it'll come down as the worst in our whole history of runs without a win. So well done, Steve Clarke. But don't worry, you've got the newspapers on your side and the SFA obviously. But the main thing is keep the hacks on your side, because they'll big you up and they'll dampen down any criticism, despite what the fans can see and what we know, that we're watching a really poor Scottish team. We really are. And I think I said this in the last one. It's almost like the manager's trying to lose games. And I would urge them to try and lose games, because the further down in the leagues, in the Nations League we go, the better. We started off in League C, we're now up to League A. You know, step too far. These teams are far too good for us. Even the League B teams, most of them are far too good for us. We got a bit of luck getting out of that. So let's get back down to League D with the Gibraltars, the San Marinos, the Liechtensteins of the world, Faroe Isles, and if we can win that league, it gets us directly into whichever tournaments next, whether it's a World Cup or a Euros. You don't even need to worry about the qualifiers. You just top that league of wee diddy teams, the minnows of the world, and we're into a qualifying tournament. But can you imagine the state we'll be in if that's our only opposition until we qualify for something? We'd get a rude awakening if we even play an average European team, you know, like a Poland or a Hungary. Oh, and by the way, that's 3 games in a row where we've lost in the dying minutes. Hungary in the Euros, Poland the other night, and Portugal. Now, that tells you something about the mentality of these players when they can't hang on to a draw right to the bitter end. They throw away goals in the 88th, 95th, and I don't know what the Hungary game was, 89th minute, something like that. So that's the last 3. So that's a pattern. That's not just coincidence. So there's definitely a fragility about them. The mentality's not right. They don't have the skill, the ability. So I suppose it stands to reason that at some point the Hanleys of the world, or the Ralstons or the McKennas or whoever, they're going to make a mistake, or not track somebody, or not tackle somebody, or give away a penalty that's going to cost you in the end. But of course, our manager can't see that. He's sticking with the same guys. What makes it even worse, I'm a Rangers fan, as you'll know, but what makes it even worse, John Souttar is a far superior central defender than McKenna or Hanley. I don't think either of these 2 guys have ever played in European games, just for Scottish international teams. So you've got a guy there who's played in European games for years, plays for Rangers, knows what it's like to be under pressure. He's sitting on the bench watching McKenna, now at Las Palmas, the only team that would take him, and Hanley, who can't even get a game for the wonderful Norwich. He's watching these 2 guys playing, and he's sitting on the bench. In a way, that sums up this manager. Just pathetic. Rangers players should just refuse to play for him, because he doesn't want to pick us anyhow. He's so busy picking Celtic and ex-Celtic players and Celtic fans who play for other teams. Well, hell mend him. He'll get the chop eventually, because he can't keep going on like this and making up excuses for a bunch of players who can't even hang on to a draw when you get to the 88th or the 95th minute, because they're just so incompetent and lacking the mentality for top international football. So that's over for another month, and then we go through the grind again. I think it's Croatia away, the next game, so that's only going to be a question of how many will we lose by. It'll be an improvement though if we don't lose by conceding a goal in the dying minutes. We'll see that as progress, and even better if our wonderful manager actually makes a few changes at the start of the game or before the game, and actually puts out a team that is slightly different and maybe gives us some hope for a slightly better future. Until then, goodbye.